I sat at my Thanksgiving table, surrounded by my 3 adult children, daughter Amanda, son Bradley, and youngest daughter Christine. After years of quietly paying Amanda's $50,000 credit card debt, I gently mentioned repayment. Amanda's face twisted with rage. "Stop begging for money, Dad. It's embarrassing," she hissed. Bradley and Christine nodded in agreement, exchanging knowing glances. The entire table went silent. I felt my face flush with humiliation, as my own children treated me like a burden. I simply smiled, pulled out my phone, and typed a text to my bank. The next morning, I woke up in my modest 3-bedroom ranch house in suburban Ohio. The same house where I'd lived for 35 years. The same house where Sarah and I raised our 3 children. The same house that felt too big and too empty since she died 4 years ago from cancer. The November sun was just coming up, barely past 7 in the morning, when my phone started ringing. I reached for it on the nightstand, squinting at the screen. Amanda. My heart sank a little. After last night's disaster, I wasn't ready to talk to her yet, but I answered anyway. That's what fathers do. "Hello? Why are you trying to ruin my life?" Amanda's voice came through the speaker so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. She was screaming, hysterical. "What did you do? What did you do?" I sat up in bed, trying to wake up fully. "Amanda, calm down. What are you talking about? My credit card was declined. At Bergman's. Do you know how humiliating that was? I was buying a handbag, and the card just got declined in front of everyone." I rubbed my eyes. A $2,000 handbag, no doubt. I'd seen the receipts from that store before. "Amanda, I told you last night. I'm not paying your bills anymore. You canceled my credit card? You actually did it?" "Yes. I did exactly what I said I would do." There was a pause. Then she started screaming again. "You can't do that. That's my card." "No, sweetheart. It's my card. In my name. That I've been paying for 3 years while you racked up $50,000 in debt. I'm a marketing director. I need to look professional. Those expenses are necessary." I stood up and walked to the kitchen, phone still pressed to my ear. "Amanda, you make $90,000 a year. You can afford your own handbags. You're unbelievable. You're cruel. You're vindictive. I can't believe you're doing this to your own daughter." Then she hung up on me. I stood there in my kitchen, the same kitchen where Sarah used to make Thanksgiving dinner, and I felt something break inside me. Not my resolve, something else. The last thread of hope that my children actually cared about me as anything other than a wallet. I made coffee. Strong and black, the way I'd been drinking it since my days working construction 40 years ago. My hands shook a little as I poured it. I kept thinking about Amanda's words. Cruel. Vindictive. Embarrassing. My phone rang again. Bradley this time. "Dad, what the hell?" My car payment bounced. "Good morning to you too, son. I'm serious. The dealership called me. They're threatening to repossess my truck. Then I suggest you make the payment yourself. I can't afford a $700 payment right now. I've got other expenses." "Bradley, you're an engineer. You make $110,000 a year. You can afford a $700 car payment. That's not the point. You've been handling this for 2 years. You can't just stop without warning. I gave you warning last night at dinner. You nodded along when your sister called me embarrassing." Silence on the other end. "Then, Dad, come on. We didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it then?" More silence. Then he hung up too. By 8:30 in the morning, Christine had called as well. Her voice was different from her siblings, softer, with tears. "Daddy, my credit cards aren't working." "What happened?" At least she called me Daddy. At least there was some affection in her voice. "I canceled them, sweetheart." "But why?" "I need those for groceries and gas and everything." "Christine, you're a dental hygienist. You make $75,000 a year. You can afford groceries and gas. But I have other bills. My apartment is expensive, and I have student loans and—" "Sweetheart, I've been paying $25,000 of your shopping debts for the past 2 years, while you lived in that expensive apartment and bought expensive clothes and went on expensive vacations." She was crying now, really crying. "I thought you wanted to help us. I thought that's what parents do." That line hit me hard. Harder than Amanda's anger or Bradley's entitlement, because Christine sounded like she genuinely believed it. "Parents help their children when they need it," I said quietly. "But you three don't need it. You just want it. There's a difference." She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat down at my kitchen table with my coffee and did something I should have done a long time ago. I logged into my bank account and looked at the numbers. $12,418.63. That's what was left of my retirement savings. Out of $117,000 I'd had 4 years ago when Sarah died. I'd spent $105,000 paying my children's debts over 3 years. Credit cards, car payments, rent when they were between jobs even though they had jobs, emergency expenses that weren't emergencies, vacations they couldn't afford, down payments on furniture and electronics and things they didn't need, and not one of them had helped pay for their mother's medical bills. Not one had contributed to her funeral expenses. Not one had asked if I was okay financially. I sat there looking at that number, $12,418.63, and I realized something terrible. I'd been trying to buy their love. After Sarah died, I'd felt so alone, so desperate to keep my children close, that I'd opened my wallet and let them take whatever they wanted. And they'd taken everything. My phone buzzed with a text message from Amanda. "You're dead to me." I turned off my phone and poured myself another cup of coffee. My hands weren't shaking anymore. 2 days later, on a cold Saturday afternoon, I heard cars pulling into my driveway. 3 cars. I looked out the window and saw all 3 of my children getting out, dressed in business clothes like they were going to an office meeting instead of visiting their father. They were carrying folders. My stomach dropped. This was planned. This wasn't a casual visit. They'd coordinated this. I opened the door before they could knock. Amanda walked in first, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor Sarah and I had installed 20 years ago. Bradley followed, his jaw set and tight. Christine came last, her eyes red like she'd been crying. "We need to talk," Amanda announced, setting her folder on my coffee table. "All right," I said. "Talk." "Sit down, Dad," Bradley said, gesturing to my own couch like he owned the place. I stayed standing. "I'm fine here." Amanda opened her folder. Inside were printed bank statements. My bank statements. "We're worried about you, Dad. We've been looking at your finances, and frankly, we're concerned." "How did you get my bank statements?" "That's not important right now," Bradley cut in. "What's important is that you've depleted your entire retirement savings. You're down to almost nothing. That's not normal behavior for someone your age." I felt heat rising in my chest. "I depleted my savings paying your debts." "That's your version of events," Amanda said coolly. "But from where we're sitting, it looks like serious financial mismanagement. We think you might be experiencing some cognitive decline." "Cognitive decline?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You think I have dementia?" Christine spoke up, her voice shaky. "Daddy, we're just worried. You've been alone since Mom died. You're working at that hardware store even though you're 67 years old. You're making poor financial decisions. We think maybe you need some help." "Help?" I repeated. "What kind of help?" Bradley pulled out another paper from his folder. "We've researched some excellent senior living communities in the area. Places where you'd have support, social activities, meal plans. You wouldn't have to worry about maintaining this big house anymore." I looked at the brochure he was holding. Sunset Gardens Senior Living. I'd driven past that place. It was nice enough, but it was for people who couldn't take care of themselves anymore. "You want to put me in a home. We want you to be safe and cared for," Amanda corrected. "This house is too much for you. It's worth about $350,000. If you sold it, the equity would easily cover a nice apartment at Sunset Gardens, and the rest could be properly managed." "Properly managed," I said. "By who? By you?" By professionals, Bradley said quickly. We could set up a trust or a power of attorney arrangement. Make sure your money is protected and lasts for your remaining years. The words hit me like a punch. Your remaining years. Like I was already 1 foot in the grave. I'm 67 years old, I said slowly. I'm in perfect health. I work part-time because I like working, not because I have to, and I'm not selling my house. Dad, be reasonable, Amanda said, her voice taking on that edge it always had when she wasn't getting her way. You're being stubborn. We're trying to help you. No, you're not. The words came out harder than I intended. Let me ask you something. Did any of you plan to pay me back? Even $1? The room went silent. They looked at each other. Then Amanda said, Pay you back? Dad, you're our father. That's what parents do. We didn't ask you to pay our bills. You absolutely asked me to. Multiple times. Amanda, you called me crying 3 years ago saying you couldn't make rent and your credit cards were maxed out. You begged me to help. You offered, she shot back. You said you wanted to help. We never forced you. Bradley nodded. That's right. You offered. You said family helps family. Those were your exact words. Christine was crying again. We thought you wanted to help us. We thought it made you feel needed after Mom died. That line was the cruelest of all because there was truth in it. I had wanted to feel needed. I had wanted to matter to my children. So, none of you feel any obligation to pay me back, I said, making it a statement instead of a question. Pay you back for being a father? Amanda said, incredulous. That's your job. You chose to have children. You don't get to send us a bill 25 years later. I sat down then. Not because they told me to, but because my legs felt weak. Let me see if I understand this, I said quietly. I spent $105,000 of my retirement savings paying your debts. Money that your mother and I saved for decades. Money that was supposed to see me through my old age. And you think I just owe you that money because I'm your father. Yes, Amanda said simply. That's what family does. Did you help pay for your mother's cancer treatment? Silence. Did you help with her funeral? More silence. Did any of you even ask if I was okay after she died? Christine was openly sobbing now, but Amanda and Bradley just stared at me, cold and unmoved. Then Bradley dropped his bomb. Look, Dad, here's the reality. Jennifer and I are getting married in 6 months. The wedding is already planned. We've put down deposits. Her family is expecting a certain level of event. Congratulations, I said, though I felt anything but happy about it. When did you get engaged? 3 months ago. 3 months ago. He hadn't told me. Hadn't invited me to meet Jennifer's family. Hadn't included me in any of the planning. The wedding is going to cost about $75,000, Bradley continued. We were counting on you taking out a home equity loan to cover it. You've got plenty of equity in this house, and the payments would be manageable. I stared at my son. You want me to borrow $75,000 against my house to pay for your wedding? Jennifer's parents are paying for half. We need you to cover the rest. It's tradition for the groom's family to contribute. Contributing and taking on $75,000 in debt are two very different things. Dad, we already put down deposits. The venue, the caterer, the photographer. If you back out now, you're going to embarrass us in front of Jennifer's entire family. They're successful people. They're going to think I come from nothing. You do come from nothing, I said. Your mother and I worked our whole lives to give you a good childhood. We didn't have money for fancy weddings. We had love and hard work. Times have changed, Amanda said. People expect more now. If Bradley shows up with some bargain basement wedding, Jennifer's family will look down on all of us. Then maybe Jennifer isn't the right person for Bradley. Bradley's face went red. You don't get to decide that. You're paying for this wedding, Dad. One way or another. Is that a threat? It's a reality. We're family. You help family. That's what Mom would have wanted. Using Sarah's memory like that, like a weapon, made something snap inside me. I stood up. Get out of my house. Dad. Come on, Christine pleaded. Get out. All of you. Right now. We're trying to help you, Amanda shouted. No. You're trying to rob me. You're trying to take my home, my savings, my independence, everything your mother and I built. And you're doing it while pretending you're concerned about me. Get out." They left, but not before Amanda turned at the door and said, "You're going to regret this. We're not going to just let you destroy yourself." After they were gone, I sat in my living room for a long time. The house was quiet except for the ticking of the old grandfather clock Sarah's parents had given us as a wedding present. I'd thought the worst was behind me. I'd thought canceling the credit cards was the hard part. I had no idea what was coming next. 1 week later, I got certified mail from First National Bank. The envelope was thick, official-looking, the kind that makes your stomach drop before you even open it. Inside was a letter informing me that someone had attempted to open a home equity line of credit in my name for $150,000. The application had been denied due to my age and reduced income, but the attempt had triggered a fraud investigation. My hands trembled as I read through the attached paperwork. There was an application form, supporting documents, and a signature that looked remarkably like mine. Not perfect, but close enough that I could see how someone might be fooled by it. I called the bank immediately. Spoke to a fraud specialist named Marcus, who walked me through what had happened. The application was submitted online, Marcus explained, but supporting documents, including a copy of your driver's license and a signed authorization form, were mailed to us. That's what raised flags. The signature looked authentic, but when we called the phone number listed to verify, it went to voicemail and was never returned. Then our underwriting department denied the application based on your debt-to-income ratio. "I never submitted this application," I said. "We assumed as much, Mr. Gibson. That's why we've opened a fraud investigation. We've also placed alerts on your account and frozen your credit. You'll need to file a police report." After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the papers. Someone had tried to steal $150,000 from me. Someone who had access to my personal information. Someone who could forge my signature. Someone in my family. I wanted to believe it wasn't one of my children. I wanted to believe there was another explanation. But I couldn't ignore the obvious. They'd been in my house. They could have photographed my driver's license. They'd seen me sign things 1,000 times. I changed all my passwords that afternoon. Every account, every login, everything. I set up 2-factor authentication. I put fraud alerts on my credit reports with all 3 bureaus. But I didn't call the police. Not yet, because I needed to know for sure. That evening, around 8 o'clock, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Christine standing there, alone. She looked terrible. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her hair was messy, and she was wearing sweatpants and an old jacket. I opened the door. "Christine, can I come in, Daddy? Please?" I let her in. She sat on the couch and immediately started crying. Not the gentle tears from before. This was gut-wrenching, sobbing, the kind that shakes your whole body. "What's wrong?" I asked, sitting across from her. "I can't do this anymore," she said between sobs. "I can't be part of this. It's wrong. Everything is wrong." "Part of what?" She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. "Bradley did it. The home equity application. He forged your signature." My heart sank, even though I'd already suspected. Hearing it confirmed was different. "How do you know?" "He told me. He's desperate, Dad. He owes $85,000 to some really bad people. Gambling debts. He's been gambling for years, ever since college. It started with poker games, then sports betting, then online casinos. He's in deep with people who aren't patient. The credit card I was paying," I said slowly. "That was covering his gambling losses?" She nodded miserably. "When you canceled it, everything fell apart. The people he owes money to started threatening him. They came to his apartment. They said if he doesn't pay by the end of the month, they're going to hurt him, really hurt him." I felt sick. My son was in danger. Despite everything, despite the lies and the manipulation, he was still my son. Why didn't he come to me? Why didn't he tell me the truth? Because he was ashamed. And because he knew you'd make him face consequences. He's been avoiding consequences his whole life, Dad. We all have. You and Mom always bailed us out, always made our problems go away. We never had to grow up, so he decided to forge my signature and steal from me. He said he had no choice. He said you left him no choice when you cut him off. I told him it was wrong. I told him not to do it. But Amanda encouraged him. Amanda knew about this? Christine nodded. She helped him. She's the one who figured out how to get a copy of your driver's license. She told Bradley that if you weren't going to help voluntarily, he had to take matters into his own hands. She said you'd never even notice because old people don't check their accounts carefully. Old people. There was that phrase again. Like I was already senile and useless. Christine, why are you telling me this? Because I'm scared. I'm scared Bradley is going to get hurt. I'm scared of what we've become. I'm scared that we've hurt you so badly that you'll never forgive us. And I'm scared because Amanda is planning something worse. What do you mean? She wants to get you declared incompetent. She's been researching it. She thinks if she can convince a court that you're mentally unfit, she can get power of attorney over you and control your finances. She's already talked to a lawyer about it. I sat back, feeling like I'd been hit. She wants to take control of everything. She wants the house. She thinks you're sitting on all this equity that should be hers. Ours. She keeps saying you're being selfish and stubborn, and that Mom would want you to share with us. Your mother would be horrified by what you've all become. Christine broke down crying again. I know, and I hate myself for it. Daddy, I'm so sorry. For all of it. For not standing up to Amanda. For taking your money. For acting like you owed us something. I'm so sorry. I wanted to comfort her. The father in me wanted to put my arm around her and tell her it would be okay. But I couldn't. Not yet. What do you want me to do, Christine? I don't know. Bradley won't listen to me. He won't get help. He won't go to the police or talk to the people he owes money to about a payment plan. He just keeps doubling down, making everything worse. And Amanda just keeps pushing him, telling him he deserves your money, that you're being selfish. I don't know what to do. I'll tell you what you do, I said quietly. You make a choice. You decide whether you're going to keep following your sister down this path, or whether you're going to stand on your own 2 feet and be your own person. I want to stand on my own. I do. But if I go against Amanda, she'll cut me off from the family. She already said so. Then maybe you need to decide what kind of family you want. She left soon after, still crying. I watched her drive away and wondered if I'd just lost all 3 of my children completely. The next morning, I called Marcus at the bank and told him I knew who had submitted the fraudulent application. He strongly encouraged me to file a police report. I told him I needed time to think about it. Then my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Gibson, this is Jennifer Walsh. I'm Bradley's fiancée. I think we need to talk. I met Jennifer at a coffee shop near my house. I'd never met her before. Bradley had never introduced us. When she walked in, I recognized her immediately from the photos Bradley had posted on social media. She was pretty, professional-looking, wearing a navy blue dress, and carrying a briefcase like she'd just come from work. She was also 7 months pregnant. I could see the swell of her belly under the dress. I stood up when she approached. Jennifer? Mr. Gibson, thank you for meeting me. She sat down across from me, carefully, the way pregnant women do. Her hands immediately went to her belly, protective and gentle. You're pregnant, I said, unable to hide my shock. Yes, 5 months along. She looked at me with sad eyes. Bradley didn't tell you, did he? No, he didn't mention it when he demanded I take out a home equity loan to pay for the wedding. She winced. I didn't know about that. I didn't know about any of this until yesterday. What happened yesterday? Jennifer took a deep breath. Yesterday, 2 men came to our apartment looking for Bradley. Scary men, the kind you see in movies. They said Bradley owed them $85,000 and that time was up. They said if he didn't pay by next Friday, they were going to break his legs. I felt cold. Did they hurt you? No. They saw I was pregnant and left, but they made it very clear they'd be back. After they left, I demanded Bradley tell me what was going on. That's when everything came out. The gambling, the debts, the fact that his whole lifestyle has been funded by you, the forged loan application, the lawsuit, everything. Lawsuit? I hadn't heard anything about a lawsuit. You don't know? She looked surprised. I thought surely they would have served you by now. Served me with what? Bradley, Amanda, and Christine are suing you for elder financial abuse. They claim you coerced them into giving you access to their finances and then deliberately sabotaged them. The lawsuit is for $105,000 plus emotional damages. I couldn't breathe. I literally couldn't catch my breath. My own children were suing me, claiming that I had abused them financially, turning the entire truth upside down. When? I managed to ask. The papers were filed on Monday. You should be served within the next few days. Today was Thursday. I had maybe a day or two before my life exploded completely. Jennifer reached across the table and touched my hand. Mr. Gibson, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Bradley told me you were wealthy, that you'd retired early, that you were generous with the family. He made it sound like you were happy to help. I didn't know he was draining your retirement savings. I didn't know about the gambling. I didn't know any of it. What are you going to do? I asked her. I'm leaving him. I can't raise a child with someone who lies like this. Someone who would steal from his own father. Someone who would gamble away everything and then blame everyone else for his problems. Tears were running down her face now. I loved him. I really did. But the man I fell in love with doesn't exist. It was all a lie. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. This woman was innocent in all this. She and her unborn baby were victims just as much as I was. Don't be sorry. You tried to help him. You tried to help all of them. They took advantage of your kindness. She wiped her eyes. But I came here to tell you something important. Something you need to know. What's that? The night before Thanksgiving, I overheard Amanda on the phone with Bradley and Christine. She was coaching them, telling them exactly what to say at dinner. She said, and I remember this exactly. We need to make him look unstable. When he reacts badly, we'll have witnesses. She planned the whole confrontation. The goal was to make you look unreasonable, so they could justify the lawsuit. The room seemed to tilt. It had all been planned. Amanda had orchestrated the entire Thanksgiving disaster, knowing I would react, using my reaction against me. Will you testify to that? I asked. If this goes to court? Yes, absolutely. I'll testify to everything. They need to face consequences for what they've done. And Mr. Gibson, I want you to know something. I'm having a boy, your grandson, and I wish more than anything that he could know you, that he could have a grandfather who's honorable and kind and decent, but he won't because of Bradley's choices. I'm so sorry for that. After Jennifer left, I sat in the coffee shop for another hour, trying to process everything. My children were suing me. They'd planned to humiliate me at Thanksgiving. They were trying to paint me as the abuser while they systematically destroyed me financially. And Bradley was in legitimate danger from the people he owed money to. Despite everything, despite the lies and the manipulation and the lawsuit, I didn't want my son to get hurt. I didn't want him to suffer violence. But I also couldn't enable him anymore. I couldn't keep saving him from his own choices. When I got home, there was a sheriff's car in my driveway. A deputy was waiting for me with an envelope. Gibson Patterson? He asked. That's me. You've been served. I took the papers and went inside. Sat down at my kitchen table and read through the lawsuit. It was 23 pages long, full of legal language, but the basic claim was clear. I had manipulated and coerced my children into giving me access to their financial accounts, then deliberately sabotaged their credit and caused them financial harm. They were suing for the $105,000 they claimed I had taken from them, plus an additional $50,000 in emotional damages. $155,000. More than I had. More than the equity in my house. Everything. I tried calling a few lawyers. The consultations were free, but the retainer fees were not. $5,000 just to start. Then hourly rates of $300 to $400. I couldn't afford it. Even if I won the lawsuit, the legal fees would bankrupt me. I'd have to represent myself. A 67-year-old retired construction worker turned part-time hardware store employee, representing myself against professional lawyers. I was going to lose. I was going to lose everything. 2 days later, Adult Protective Services called. Mr. Gibson, this is Patricia Newman from APS. We received a report of concern regarding your welfare. I need to schedule a home visit to assess your situation. What kind of report? I can't share the details of who filed the report, but the concerns include possible dementia, unsafe living conditions, and potential self-neglect. It's standard procedure to follow up on these reports. My home is clean. I'm mentally competent. This is a false report. I understand you may feel that way, sir, but we still need to complete the assessment. How about tomorrow afternoon at 2? I agreed because I had no choice. Patricia showed up exactly on time, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a clipboard. She walked through my house, taking notes, asked me questions about my daily routine, my health, my finances, watched how I moved, how I spoke, how I interacted. After about an hour, she sat down with me at the kitchen table. Mr. Gibson, your home is immaculate. You're clearly taking good care of yourself. You're articulate, well-groomed, and mentally sharp. Whoever filed this report either has incorrect information or has an ulterior motive. It was my children, I said. They're trying to make me look incompetent so they can get power of attorney. She sighed. Unfortunately, this is more common than you'd think. Financial exploitation by family members often includes attempts to discredit the victim. I'm going to document that this report was unfounded and malicious. But Mr. Gibson, I want you to know that your name is now in our system. That can work against you if there are future reports. They're destroying me, I said quietly, and they're doing it systematically. Then you need to fight back. Document everything. Get a lawyer if you can. Don't let them win. After she left, I stood at my front window and watched my neighbor Bob walking his dog. Bob waved, but there was something different in his expression. Curiosity, concern. He'd seen the APS car. He was wondering what was wrong with poor old Gibson across the street. My reputation in my own neighborhood was being destroyed. That evening, I checked social media for the first time in days. Amanda had posted a long, emotional message. I read it with growing horror. Heartbroken today thinking about my dad. Watching a parent decline is one of the hardest things I've ever experienced. We're trying to help him, but he's refusing all support. He's isolated himself, pushed away family, and is making dangerous financial decisions. If you're going through something similar with an aging parent, my heart goes out to you. All we can do is keep trying and hope they eventually accept our love and help. 342 likes, 76 comments, all supportive. So hard. You're a good daughter. Stay strong. My phone started ringing. Extended family. Friends from church. People I'd known for decades. Gibson, we saw Amanda's post. Are you okay? Why won't you let your children help you? We're worried about you living alone. I tried to explain, tried to tell them about the debts, the manipulation, the lawsuit. But I sounded defensive, paranoid, like exactly the kind of declining elder Amanda had described. She'd crafted the narrative perfectly, and I had no way to fight back without looking worse. That night, my brother Robert called from Arizona. He's 3 years younger than me, lived out west for the past 20 years. We talked maybe once a month, usually just catching up on nothing important. Gibson, I heard about what's happening with your kids. Amanda post about it on social media out there too? She did. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because I remembered something. Something about Dad's will. Our father had died 15 years ago, leaving the house to me since I was the oldest and still living in Ohio. But there had been something else, something I'd completely forgotten about. "The trust fund," Robert said. "Do you remember? Dad set up a trust for your kids, $200,000, divided equally among the three of them, but they can't access it until they turn 40. The memory came flooding back. Our father, in his lawyer's office, explaining his reasoning. Too many young people waste their inheritance. By 40, they'll have maturity. They'll understand the value of money. "How much is it worth now?" I asked. I called the law firm today. With investment growth over 15 years, it's worth $275,000 now. $91,667 for each of them. Amanda's 40. She turned 40 last year. Right. But there's a clause. They have to demonstrate sound financial judgment to receive the inheritance. Dad was specific about that. He didn't want the money going to someone who'd just wasted. Will that hold up in court? I don't know. But Gibson, I'm telling you this because if your kids get you declared incompetent, they might be able to access both the trust fund and your house through a conservatorship. They could take everything. After I hung up with Robert, I sat in the dark living room for a long time. The same living room where Sarah and I had watched our children grow up, where we'd celebrated birthdays and Christmases and graduations, where we'd built a family. That family was gone now. In its place was a legal battle that would cost me everything I had left. I thought about just giving up, just selling the house, giving them the money, and walking away from all of it, moving to some small apartment somewhere, and living out my remaining years alone and poor but at least at peace. But then I heard Sarah's voice in my head. Not a real voice, just the memory of her, during one of her last days in the hospital. "Don't let them take advantage of you, Gibson. You're too kind. Promise me you'll stand up for yourself." I'd promised her, and I'd broken that promise for 4 years by opening my wallet every time the kids asked. But I wasn't going to break it anymore. The first thing I did Monday morning was call the law firm that managed the trust fund, Goldman and Associates, a small practice that had been handling our family's legal matters for over 30 years. I asked to speak with Harold Steinberg, the senior partner who'd known my father. Harold was 68 years old now, semi-retired but still overseeing important accounts. When his secretary put me through, his voice was warm. "Gibson Patterson, I heard about what's happening. Robert called me last week. Then you know I'm being sued by my own children." "I do. And I want you to know that I'll testify on your behalf about the trust fund and your father's intentions." Your father specifically included that financial judgment clause because he'd seen too many inheritances destroyed by reckless spending. He wanted his grandchildren to be responsible adults before they received a penny. Will the clause hold up in court? Honestly, it's subjective. But given what I understand about your children's behavior, forging loan applications and filing malicious lawsuits, I think we can make a strong case that they lack the sound judgment your father required. Harold gave me the name of his niece, Rachel Brennan, who specialized in elder law and did some pro bono cases. I called her that afternoon. Rachel was 43, sharp as a razor, and angry when I finished explaining my situation. "This is financial elder abuse," she said flatly. "Textbook case. Your children systematically exploited your grief and generosity, and now they're trying to gaslight everyone into thinking you're the problem. Can you help me?" "Yes. My normal retainer is $5,000, but given your financial situation, I'll do it for $1,000 and a payment plan for the rest. We're going to fight this, Mr. Gibson, and we're going to win." For the first time in weeks, I felt a small spark of hope. Rachel started working immediately. She subpoenaed my children's financial records. She interviewed Jennifer, who agreed to testify. She reviewed every bank statement, every credit card statement, every canceled check I had. She also listened to something I'd forgotten I had. My phone, which I'd been using to record family dinners ever since Sarah died. I'd started doing it to preserve the sound of voices, to have something to listen to when I felt lonely. I'd recorded Thanksgiving dinner. The entire confrontation was on audio. Amanda's cruel words. the way my children had ganged up on me, the humiliation in my voice. "This is gold," Rachel said when I played it for her. "Juries eat this stuff up. Real emotion, real cruelty, all documented." But Rachel also warned me that the trial was still 3 months away, and a lot could happen before then. She was right. 1 week before the trial was scheduled to begin, Bradley's fiancée Jennifer showed up at my door again. This time she looked different, calm, resolved, sad, but strong. "I need to tell you something," she said. "I'm leaving Bradley, for good. I found a place in my home state of Wisconsin. I'm moving next week." "What happened?" "The men he owes money to found him at his office, confronted him in the parking lot, threatened him in front of his co-workers. He's terrified. He's been begging me to ask you for the money, saying his father should save him. That's what fathers do." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. But I told him no. I told him I wouldn't be part of manipulating you anymore. "Is it in danger?" "I don't know. Maybe. But Gibson, I can't let my son grow up watching his father gamble and lie and manipulate people. I can't do it. So I'm leaving. And I wanted you to know that I'm still willing to testify. In fact, I have something else to tell the court." "What's that?" "The night before Thanksgiving, the night I overheard Amanda coaching everyone, I recorded part of it. I was FaceTiming with my sister, and I left my phone on the counter while I went to the bathroom. The conversation with Amanda happened while my phone was there, recording. I have her voice on tape, planning the whole thing. I couldn't believe it. Hard evidence. Proof of the conspiracy. Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I was scared. Scared of Bradley. Scared of getting involved. Scared of everything. But I'm not scared anymore. I'm angry. These people tried to destroy you, and they're still trying. Someone needs to stop them." Rachel was ecstatic when I told her. She immediately subpoenaed the recording from Jennifer. Amanda's lawyer, a man named Donald Pierce, tried to get it thrown out as inadmissible, but the judge allowed it. The trial was scheduled to begin on a Monday in March. Cold and gray outside. Snow still on the ground from a storm the week before. I wore my only suit, the same one I'd worn to Sarah's funeral. Rachel met me at the courthouse steps. "Are you ready?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be." The courtroom was small, formal, intimidating. My 3 children sat at the plaintiff's table with Donald Pierce, their attorney. Amanda looked confident, wearing an expensive suit. Bradley looked nervous, his leg bouncing under the table. Christine looked miserable, staring at her hands. None of them would look at me. The trial lasted 3 days. Rachel presented our case methodically, brilliantly. She showed the financial records proving I'd paid all their debts. She showed medical bills from Sarah's cancer treatment that I'd paid alone, without help from any of the children. She played the audio recording from Thanksgiving dinner, and I watched the jury members' faces change as they heard Amanda's cruelty. She called Jennifer to the stand. Jennifer testified about overhearing the planning session before Thanksgiving. Then Rachel played the audio Jennifer had accidentally recorded. Amanda's voice, clear and unmistakable. "We need to make him look unstable. When he reacts badly, we'll have witnesses." The courtroom went silent. Amanda's face went pale. Rachel called Harold Steinberg to testify about the trust fund and my father's requirements for sound financial judgment. She showed documentation of Bradley's gambling debts, of Amanda's lavish spending, of the forged loan application with Bradley's fingerprints on it. Donald Pierce, their attorney, tried to fight back. He called all 3 children to the stand, but their testimony fell apart under cross-examination. Amanda became hostile, revealing her true character. When Rachel asked her if she felt any gratitude for the $105,000 I'd spent on her, Amanda snapped. "He owed us that money. He's our father." Bradley refused to answer questions about the forged loan application, invoking his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. That made him look guilty. Christine broke down on the stand, sobbing. "I didn't want to do this. Amanda said we had to. She said Dad was hiding money from us. She said he was the bad guy. But he's not. He's not the bad guy. We are." After 3 days of testimony, the judge didn't even need the jury to deliberate long. They came back in 45 minutes. Verdict. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice. My children's claims were found to be without merit and malicious. But the judge wasn't done. She ordered all three of them to pay my legal fees, which totaled $32,000. She also referred Bradley's case to the district attorney for potential criminal charges related to the forged loan application. Finally, she looked at my children and said something I'll never forget. "You three should be ashamed of yourselves. Your father gave you everything, and you repaid his kindness with cruelty and greed. I hope someday you realize what you've done and find a way to make amends. But until then, you deserve every bit of the consequences coming your way." We walked out of the courthouse into the cold March afternoon. My children got into their separate cars and left without saying a word to me. Christine was crying. Bradley looked shell-shocked. Amanda looked furious. Rachel put her hand on my shoulder. "You did it, Gibson. You won." But I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt empty. Relieved, but empty. I'd defeated my children in court, but I'd lost them forever. The weeks after the trial were strange, quiet. I went back to my routine, working at the hardware store 3 days a week, maintaining the house, living my simple life. But everything felt different. The weight I'd been carrying for years was gone, but so was the family I'd raised. Bradley was formally charged with attempted fraud for the forged loan application. His attorney negotiated a plea deal: 2 years probation, mandatory gambling addiction treatment, and community service. No jail time, but a criminal record. His engineering license was suspended pending review by the state board. He lost his job. Jennifer had already moved back to Wisconsin with their unborn son. She filed for full custody before the baby was even born. Bradley didn't fight it. Last I heard, he'd moved in with a friend and was working at a warehouse while attending gambling addiction meetings 3 times a week. Amanda disappeared from social media after the trial, deleted all her posts, including the one painting me as a declining elder. Too late, though. Too many people had already seen the truth. Her reputation in our community was destroyed. She'd been exposed as a manipulator and a liar. I heard through the grapevine that she'd moved to another state. North Carolina, someone said. Started over somewhere nobody knew her story. Christine was different. A week after the trial ended, she called me. Her voice was small, broken. "Daddy, can I come see you?" Of course. She showed up that evening, alone. We sat in my living room, the same room where we'd had so many family moments over the years. She cried for a long time before she could speak. "I'm so sorry," she finally said, "for all of it, for letting Amanda control me, for not standing up for you, for taking your money and acting like you owed it to me. I was wrong, about everything." "What changed?" I asked. "Therapy. I started seeing a therapist the week after Thanksgiving, after I told you about Bradley's forgery. She helped me see how codependent I've been on Amanda my whole life, how I've never made my own decisions, how I've been using you as a wallet because I was too scared to stand on my own. What are you going to do now?" I got a second job, waitressing at night after my dental hygiene shifts. "I'm going to pay off all my own debts, every penny. It's going to take me 2 years, but I'm going to do it." And then, she looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "Then, maybe I can start earning back your trust, if you'll let me." I wanted to hug her, wanted to tell her everything was forgiven, but I couldn't. Not yet. The wound was still too fresh. "I appreciate that, sweetheart. But trust isn't rebuilt overnight. It takes time." "I know. I'll wait however long it takes." She started coming by once a week after that. Sunday afternoons. We'd have coffee and talk. Not about the past at first, just about life. Her job, her therapy, small things. Slowly, carefully, we started rebuilding something. Not the relationship we'd had before, something different, more honest. Meanwhile, Harold Steinberg contacted me about the trust fund. Based on the trial outcome and the judge's findings, the trust board had made a decision. Amanda and Bradley were disqualified from receiving their portions of the inheritance. The clause about sound financial judgment was being enforced. Bradley's portion would go to his son once the child turned 25, held in trust until then. Amanda's portion would go to charity, as specified in my father's original trust documents. Christine's portion remained available to her when she turned 40 in 2 years, provided she continued to demonstrate the financial responsibility she was showing now. Amanda tried to fight the decision, hired another lawyer. But after the trial, after everything that had been documented and proven, she had no case. The trust board's decision stood. I heard she was furious, blamed me for turning the trust against her. But she didn't contact me, didn't come to Ohio, just stayed gone. Bradley was living day to day, focused on his treatment and his probation. Jennifer sent me a photo when the baby was born, a beautiful boy named Thomas. She included a note. I know you can't be part of his life right now because of Bradley's choices, but I wanted you to know you have a grandson, and he's healthy and loved. Maybe someday, when Bradley has truly changed, we can revisit this. I hope so. Every boy deserves a good grandfather. I kept that photo on my refrigerator. A grandson I'd never meet. Another loss in a long line of losses. But something else started happening too. Something unexpected. The trial had been covered by the local news. Just a small story, but enough that people in town heard about it. And instead of judging me like I'd feared, they were supportive, sympathetic. Customers at the hardware store would stop me in the aisles. I heard about what happened with your kids. I'm so sorry. My sister did something similar to my parents. It's more common than people think. My neighbor Bob came over with a casserole and an apology. I'm sorry I believed the gossip. You're a good man, Gibson. What happened to you wasn't right. I joined a support group for seniors dealing with financial abuse from family members. Met at the community center every Thursday evening. Heard stories that made mine look mild. People who'd lost everything. People whose children had cleaned out their accounts and left them homeless. People who'd been physically threatened. But I also heard stories of recovery, of setting boundaries, of rebuilding lives, of finding peace without the toxic family members who'd been dragging them down. I started volunteering with the group, helping other seniors recognize the warning signs I'd missed, teaching them how to protect themselves, how to say no, how to understand that real love doesn't come with a price tag. My part-time job at the hardware store became something more meaningful. I'd been working there for 4 years, just to stay busy, to have something to do. But now I realized I actually enjoyed it. Enjoyed helping customers find the right tools, giving advice on home repairs, being useful. My boss, Frank, offered me full-time hours if I wanted them. I was 67 years old, but I felt good, strong, capable. Why not? And then something else happened. Something I didn't expect at all. A customer came in looking for advice on refinishing hardwood floors. Her name was Dorothy Walsh, a widow around my age with kind eyes and a warm smile. We talked for an hour about floor sanders and stains and polyurethane. Before she left, she thanked me for my help. You really know your stuff, she said. 35 years in construction before I retired. Floors were my specialty. Well, if you ever want to make some extra money, I could use help with my project. I'd pay you, of course. I helped her refinish her floors that weekend. We talked while we worked. She'd lost her husband to a heart attack 6 years ago. Had 2 daughters who lived out of state but called regularly. Loved gardening and mystery novels. Volunteered at the library. When the floors were done, she invited me to stay for dinner. Homemade pot roast, the first home-cooked meal I'd had in months that I hadn't made myself. We started having coffee together on Saturday mornings. Nothing serious, just friendship. 2 people who'd both lost spouses and understood what that loneliness felt like. Christine met her once when she stopped by during one of our coffee meetings. Later, Christine called me. She seems really nice, Dad. She is. Are you dating? We're friends. Would you want to date her? I thought about it. Maybe. Someday. When I'm ready. Good. You deserve to be happy. Spring turned to summer. I kept working at the hardware store, kept attending the support group, kept having coffee with Dorothy. Christine kept coming by on Sundays, kept working her 2 jobs, kept going to therapy. Harold Steinberg called in July with news. Bradley had completed his gambling addiction treatment program and was doing well. He'd found a job as a construction project coordinator, something that didn't require his engineering license. He was making his restitution payments on time. He'd written a letter to the judge, asking if he could send me a letter of apology. The judge forwarded it to Rachel, who forwarded it to me. The letter was 3 pages long, handwritten, raw, and honest. Bradley took full responsibility for everything: the gambling, the manipulation, the forgery, the lawsuit. He didn't make excuses, didn't blame anyone else, just apologized, and said he understood if I never wanted to hear from him again. He included a photo of Thomas, now 5 months old. "He looks like you," Bradley wrote. "Same eyes, same smile. I wish I could let you meet him, but I understand why that can't happen yet. I have to earn that privilege. I have to become the kind of man who deserves to be Thomas's father, and the kind of son who deserves to be your son." I read that letter 10 times, cried over it, put it in a drawer with the photo of Thomas. I didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe someday. But not yet. The trial had ended in March. By October, 7 months later, my life had settled into something I never expected. Peace. Not the life I'd imagined when Sarah was alive. Not the golden retirement with grandchildren and family gatherings. But something quieter, simpler, built on truth instead of obligation. Christine and I had continued our Sunday afternoon visits. Slowly, carefully, we'd rebuilt trust. She'd paid off $12,000 of her debts in 7 months, working her 2 jobs, living frugally in a smaller apartment. She'd cut off contact with Amanda completely. She was standing on her own feet for the first time in her life. One Sunday in late October, almost exactly a year after the Thanksgiving disaster, Christine came over with something in her hands. An envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a check for $500, made out to me, her handwriting on the memo line. "First payment." "Christine, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do. You spent $25,000 paying my debts. I'm going to pay you back. Every penny. It'll take me years, but I'm going to do it. Because that's what responsible adults do. They pay their debts." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw someone I hadn't seen before. Not the little girl I'd raised. Not the entitled adult child who'd taken advantage of my generosity. Someone new. Someone who was finally growing up. "I'm proud of you," I said, and I meant it. She started crying. "That means everything to me, Daddy. Everything." I didn't cash the check right away. I put it on my refrigerator next to Thomas's photo, a reminder that people can change if they choose to. Dorothy and I had been seeing each other regularly for 6 months by then. We'd moved beyond coffee to actual dates, dinners, movies, long walks. She'd met Christine several times. They got along well. Dorothy understood complicated family situations. She understood loss and rebuilding and second chances. In November, I invited her to have Thanksgiving dinner with me, just the 2 of us. Christine asked if she could join, and I said yes. It was quiet, small, nothing like the big family gatherings Sarah used to host. But it was real, honest, filled with gratitude instead of resentment. Christine told us during dinner that she'd been accepted into a management training program at the dental office where she worked. More responsibility, better pay. She was building a career instead of just working a job. "Mom would be proud of you," I told her. "I hope so. I'm trying to become the person she thought I could be." After dinner, Dorothy helped me clean up while Christine dozed on the couch. Dorothy touched my hand while we were washing dishes. "You've come a long way this year," she said. "So have you. Do you ever regret it? Fighting back against your children?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I regret that it was necessary. I regret that they made the choices they made. But I don't regret standing up for myself. Sarah asked me to promise I would, and I finally kept that promise. She'd be proud of you too. In December, Harold Steinberg called with an update. Bradley had completed his probation requirements and was petitioning to have his record expunged. His counselor had written a letter supporting the petition, stating that Bradley had made significant progress in his recovery and was committed to maintaining his sobriety from gambling. Jennifer had also reached out to Harold. She was willing to consider supervised visitation between Bradley and Thomas if Bradley continued to demonstrate stability for another 6 months. She'd even mentioned that maybe, eventually, I could meet my grandson. "How do you feel about that?" Harold asked, cautiously hopeful. "Bradley has a long way to go, but at least he's going in the right direction." Amanda remained silent. No contact, no attempts to reconcile. I heard through distant relatives that she was living in Charlotte, working in marketing for a small firm, keeping a low profile. She'd apparently told people her family was deceased. Easier than explaining the truth. It hurt. Of course it hurt. She was still my daughter. But I'd accepted that some relationships can't be saved. Some people aren't willing to do the work required to heal what they've broken. By Christmas, my life looked completely different from a year ago. I was working full-time at the hardware store and loving it. I was dating Dorothy, and it was getting serious. We'd talked about moving in together eventually, maybe combining households to save money and enjoy companionship in our later years. Christine was thriving. She'd been promoted to office manager. She'd paid off another $3,000 of debt. She was seeing someone, a teacher named Aaron, who seemed kind and stable. She'd brought him to meet me, nervous about my approval. I liked him. I'd rebuilt my savings to $22,000. Not much, but growing. I'd learned to live on less and found I didn't miss the excess. The house was paid off. My needs were simple. I was okay. On New Year's Eve, Dorothy and I sat on my porch, wrapped in blankets, drinking hot cider, watching the neighborhood fireworks. Christine and Aaron were inside playing cards, their laughter drifting out through the window. "What's your resolution for the new year?" Dorothy asked. I thought about everything I'd learned over the past year, about boundaries and self-respect, about the difference between enabling and helping, about how love shouldn't cost everything you have. "To keep moving forward," I said. "To not look back with anger or regret. To appreciate what I have instead of mourning what I lost." "That's a good resolution. What about you?" "To keep letting people in. It's scary, trusting again after loss. But I'm glad I took the chance with you." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky light up with colors. I thought about my father and the trust fund he'd set up. He'd understood something I hadn't learned until too late, that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for your children is to let them face consequences, to let them grow up, to refuse to enable their worst impulses. I'd spent years trying to be a good father by saying yes to everything, by opening my wallet every time my children asked, by sacrificing my own security for their wants. But I'd been wrong. Being a good father meant teaching them to stand on their own, to be responsible, to understand that love isn't measured in dollars. I'd finally learned that lesson at 67 years old. Better late than never. In February, I got a letter from Bradley, another apology, but also an update. He'd been sober from gambling for over a year. He'd saved $5,000 in an emergency fund. He'd been seeing a therapist regularly. He'd asked Jennifer if I could meet Thomas, and she'd agreed to arrange a visit in March if I was willing. I was willing. I met my grandson on a Saturday in March, 14 months after the Thanksgiving disaster. Jennifer drove up from Wisconsin with Thomas, now 11 months old. We met at a park halfway between our locations. Bradley wasn't there. Jennifer had decided this first meeting should be just me and Thomas, without the complication of Bradley's presence. Thomas was beautiful, dark hair like Bradley had as a baby. Sarah's smile. He was curious and cheerful, reaching for everything, babbling in baby language. I held him. and he grabbed my finger with his tiny hand. "Hi, Thomas," I said. "I'm your grandpa." He smiled at me, just smiled. Jennifer watched us, tears in her eyes. "He needs good men in his life. I can't give him that alone. If Bradley continues to do well, maybe we can work out regular visits. I'd like Thomas to know his grandfather." "I'd like that too." It wasn't a guarantee. It wasn't a happy ending tied up with a bow. But it was a beginning. By the time I turned 68 in April, my life had stabilized into something sustainable. I was working full-time at the hardware store, making enough to live comfortably and continue rebuilding my savings. Dorothy and I had decided to move in together that summer. She'd sell her house, I'd keep mine, and we'd share expenses and companionship. Christine was doing well, planning to get engaged to Aaron. She'd paid me back $4,000 so far and was on track to finish in 4 more years. She called me every Sunday, and we had dinner together twice a month. Bradley was maintaining his recovery and working toward rebuilding a relationship with Jennifer and Thomas. I'd seen him briefly at Thomas's first birthday party in April. We'd spoken for maybe 5 minutes. Awkward, painful, but civil. He'd thanked me for giving him a chance to meet his son. I'd told him to keep working on himself. Amanda remained gone, silent. I'd accepted that she might never come back. Some people can't admit when they're wrong. Some people can't do the work required for forgiveness and healing. I'd made peace with that. One evening in late April, I was closing up at the hardware store when a young woman came in, frantic. Her sink was leaking, water everywhere, and she didn't know what to do. I helped her find the parts she needed, drew her a diagram of how to fix it, gave her step-by-step instructions. She was so grateful she almost cried. "Thank you so much. I'm a single mom, and I can't afford a plumber. You just saved me." "Happy to help," I said. After she left, I thought about how much my life had changed. A year and a half ago, I'd been sitting at a Thanksgiving table, humiliated by my own children, facing financial ruin. Now I was helping strangers, building a new relationship, slowly reconnecting with family members who'd earned it. I'd lost almost everything. My savings, my children, at least temporarily. The family I'd built with Sarah. But I'd gained something too. Self-respect, boundaries, the understanding that I was worth more than what I could provide financially. The lesson had been painful, brutally painful, but necessary. I'd learned that enabling isn't love. That sacrifice, without appreciation, becomes martyrdom. That you can't force people to grow up, you can only hope they choose to. I'd learned that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you will hurt you the most, and that you have to protect yourself even when it means standing alone. I'd learned that peace is better than the illusion of family harmony. That honest relationships, even difficult ones, are better than relationships built on obligation and guilt. Most importantly, I'd learned that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, to say no, to demand respect, to refuse to be taken advantage of. At 68 years old, I'd finally learned to value myself. Was it worth it? Losing my children to gain my dignity? I thought about that question a lot. The answer was complicated. I didn't want to lose my children. I'd have preferred they make better choices, that we could have worked through this without lawyers and trials and broken relationships. But given the choice between being respected or being used, between having boundaries or being exploited, between peace and dysfunction, I'd make the same choice again, because I'd finally learned what Sarah had tried to teach me in those final days. You can't help people who won't help themselves. You can't love someone into changing, and you can't sacrifice yourself on the altar of family obligation and expect anything but resentment in return. Dorothy and I were sitting on my porch one evening in May, watching the sunset, when she asked me the question I'd been thinking about. "Do you think you'll ever fully reconcile with your children?" "With Christine, maybe. We're working on it. With Bradley, I don't know. He's trying, but trust takes time. With Amanda, probably not. She's made her choice." "Does that make you sad?" "Yes. But it also makes me free." She understood. She always did. As the sun set over my modest house in suburban Ohio, I thought about everything I'd been through: the betrayal, the humiliation, the lawsuit, the loss, but also the growth, the boundaries, the new relationships, the peace. My father had set up that trust fund, requiring sound financial judgment for a reason. He'd understood that money reveals character, that how people handle resources shows who they really are. My children had shown me who they were, and I'd finally stopped making excuses for them. That was my real inheritance from my father. Not the house or the money, but the lesson. Some people will love you for what you can give them, and some will love you for who you are. Learn to tell the difference. I'd learned. Finally, at 68, I'd learned. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where family took advantage of your generosity, where you had to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself? How did you handle it? What would you do differently? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's struggling with the same decision. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own boundaries and relationships, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. Share this story with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes we all need permission to stand up for ourselves. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it wasn't easy to hear, but I hope it reminded you that it's never too late to choose yourself. It's never too late to demand respect. And it's never too late to walk away from relationships that cost you everything and give you nothing in return. Take care of yourselves, set your boundaries, know your worth, and remember, real love doesn't come with a price tag. Until next time.